irrelevant. A woman asserting herself was a pariah. If a black woman assumed the role of leadership, she was said to be eroding black manhood, to hindering the progress of the black race. She was an enemy of her people. It was under these circumstances that today's speaker emerged as an important woman in the fight for civil rights. Please join me as we welcome Ms. Elaine Brown to the stage.
The name Margaret.
Should not get any. Found that out.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I especially want to thank Dr. Katrina Caldwell for inviting me and allowing me the opportunity to I can't say I remember Dr. Caldwell individually when she was at school with my daughter at Spelman, but she is one of my daughters in that way. You know, I've been often asked how I became the chairman of the Black Panther Party and therefore the leader of the party, considered a paramilitary militant group of black men, and how some woman came to be the chairman, not the chairwoman by the way, or the chair of the Black Panther Party, as though I had broken through some kind of glass ceiling and that the Black Panther Party was composed of corporate men or something, and I had somehow figured out how to, you know, go through that. Despite the, you know, the imagery and the rhetoric that we know about, and some of which was extracted from my book just now, the men of the Black Panther Party were not our enemies, and we were not oppressed by the men of the Black Panther Party. We clearly knew who the oppressor was, and it was not the men in the Black Panther Party. That said, of course, there was rampant chauvinism and what have you, because as I always like to tell people, where did you think we got these brothers from? Revolutionary Heaven? We didn't come from revolutionary heaven. We had our own skewed ideas and became educated around revolutionary principles as we saw it. So what happens when we talk about the role of women in the movement? Their debate arises, usually it refers back to the dominant discourse of what I call bourgeois feminists, who don't exactly square their reality with what the reality of black people is in America, and was certainly at that time. You know, back in the day, the Gloria Steinems and Betty Friedan's were saying things like, out of the kitchen and into the street, out of the kitchen and into the street. And people like my mother were saying, yeah, I want to get out of the kitchen, I want to get out of your kitchen. So the feminist model that we think of in the dominant sense doesn't necessarily apply, and so we have to look at the movement from the context of its reality, not an imposed and really incorrect cultural ideal. If we want to have a correct analysis, we have to look at the facts. For example, today, when we talk about the role of women, we forget about the status of women. And in the case of black women, 70% of our families, black families, are headed by single black women, most of whom are living in poverty. And we pretend that that's not true, and we sort of go on with these kind of images of, well, let me get a good job at the corporation, and we forget that a lot of our women are really suffering in poverty trying to raise our children. And yet, we represent still the majority of support for the families in black America. Now, if we were to look at it from a so-called this feminist perspective, we might ask, well, why is that true? Something wrong with black men? Are they lazy and trifling? Because that's the underlying question, isn't it? Maybe it's something wrong with black women. We're lazy and trifling, having all these babies out of wedlock. Now, I say that because, for example, in 1993, when Bill Clinton, not more